She screamed, "Open the door or we'll break it down." The sound of boots crunching against the gravel outside our cabin made my heart race. I looked at my wife, her eyes calm, her hand already moving toward her purse. Through the window I saw them, 3 people in fake uniforms, holding plastic badges that caught the porch light just enough to look real from a distance. And standing in front, barking orders like a drill sergeant, was her, the same woman who had been leaving fake HOA notices on our fence for weeks. "Karen, you're trespassing," I shouted through the door. "This is private property." She laughed, a sharp, proud laugh. "Not anymore," she snapped. "You violated community rules. We're here to remove you. Step aside before things get worse." Community rules? We lived on 40 acres of forest land, miles away from any HOA. But she stood there, pretending like she owned the mountain. The so-called officers behind her started moving closer, one of them gripping a taser like it was real law enforcement business. Inside, my wife whispered, "Don't talk. Let me handle it." Her voice was calm, almost too calm. I didn't understand. Why? Until she pulled out a slim leather badge holder from her bag. The air shifted. Karen banged on the door again. "You have 10 seconds to open up before we detain you both." The cabin felt too small for my heartbeat. My wife stepped forward, unlatched the door, and swung it open herself. The 3 fake cops froze mid-step. Karen's smirk vanished as my wife raised her badge, federal agency, gleaming under the porch light. "Ma'am," my wife said coldly, "you just threatened a federal agent on government-protected land." The silence that followed was heavy. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. Karen's eyes flickered between my wife's badge and her so-called officers, who suddenly looked like scared teenagers caught in a lie. And that's when I saw it, the tremble in Karen's hand. The same hand that had once taped a fake eviction notice to our fence now shook, like she was realizing just how badly she had crossed the line. My wife stepped closer. "You have 3 seconds to explain who sent you," she said softly. "After that, I start recording." Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She wasn't ready for this. Not tonight, not here. And I couldn't help but think, this was only the beginning. Karen took a step back, her voice trembling as she tried to regain control. "This isn't over," she said, forcing a laugh that didn't match the fear in her eyes. "You think that badge scares me? I know people, real people, who run this county." My wife tilted her head slightly. "Then call them," she said. "Let's see who answers." Her calmness wasn't arrogance, it was precision. Every move she made was calculated, like she had already predicted how this would play out. The fake officers looked lost now. One of them, a man barely in his 20s, whispered something to Karen. She snapped at him, "Shut up and stand straight." But her control was slipping and everyone could see it. I took out my phone and started recording. The flashlight beam from my screen cut across their faces, exposing the cheap plastic badges and wrinkled thrift store uniforms. "Smile," I said. "You're about to go viral." Karen's jaw tightened. She lunged forward and smacked the phone from my hand. It hit the porch screen first. "That's assault," I said slowly, my voice shaking from anger. My wife didn't flinch. She leaned in close enough that Karen could see her reflection in the badge. "Walk away," she said quietly, "before this becomes federal obstruction." For a moment it worked. Karen turned to leave, muttering under her breath. But as she reached the edge of the gravel driveway, headlights appeared through the trees, 2 trucks, their engines low and heavy. My stomach dropped. More of them. Karen's confidence returned with that glow. "You see?" she said, smirking again. "I told you I know people." The truck stopped behind her, and 4 men stepped out, bigger, rougher, and definitely not law enforcement. My wife whispered, "They're not here for a talk." Karen folded her arms. "I told you this cabin violates community safety codes. We're here to handle it, by any means necessary." The men started walking toward us, flashlights in hand. One of them carried a toolbox, not with tools, but with zip ties and duct tape inside. I caught a glimpse when he opened it. That's when my wife did something that froze everyone again. She reached into her jacket, pulled out a small device and pressed a button. A soft click. Then a flash of red light appeared from the corner of the cabin roof. Karen's smile disappeared completely. "What's that?" she asked. My wife looked at her and said, "It's your biggest mistake." Karen's eyes darted toward the red light blinking above the cabin roof. What the hell is that? She whispered, her voice cracking now. My wife took a slow step forward, keeping her tone calm and steady.
That, she said, is a live uplink.
Everything that happens here is already being streamed to a secure server. And to the sheriff's office downtown. For the first time, Karen didn't have a comeback. The fake cops behind her looked at each other, one of them mouthing something like, "We're done." The four men from the truck stopped mid-step, their flashlights dropping slightly. The woods went silent except for the low hum of the truck engines. My wife continued, "I've been watching you for 3 weeks. The fake HOA notices, the bogus violations, the trespassing, and now this." She pointed at the men with zip ties. "You came here thinking you could scare a family off their own land." Karen's confidence cracked completely. "You don't understand," she stammered. "We were told this property was part of a restricted zone, some corporate thing." "By who?" I asked, stepping closer. Karen hesitated. I can't say his name." "Then I'll help you remember," my wife said, pulling her phone from her pocket. With one swipe, she brought up a live video feed, 4 camera angles surrounding the property. Every face there was crystal clear on the screen. "See, Karen? You've been on camera since you parked your car, so either you start talking, or I'll let the evidence do the talking for you." Karen looked pale, her lipstick trembling against the cold. She turned toward the men behind her, but none of them moved. One of them muttered, "She didn't tell us this was real federal land." That line changed everything. My wife's face hardened. "Federal land?" I whispered. "What do you mean?" Karen tried to speak, but my wife cut her off. "He's right," she said quietly, almost to herself. "They weren't just trying to scare us. They were trying to push us off this land." Karen's silence confirmed it. My wife's instincts kicked in fast. She turned, unlocked her car remotely, and opened the glove box through the app. A faint beeping came from inside. "What are you doing?" Karen yelled. My wife gave a slight smile. "Activating proof." Seconds later, the car's dash screen lit up, showing a series of emails, maps, and transaction records. Someone had paid Karen to stage this attack. The name on the transfer appeared slowly as the file decrypted. Karen's face turned ghost white. She took one step back. No, don't show that." But the screen had already revealed it. It wasn't a random HOA member. It was someone with real power in the county, someone who wanted this land badly enough to fake an entire enforcement operation. And from the look on my wife's face, she knew exactly who it was. The name on the car's dash screen glowed through the darkness like a curse. Harold Dunn, the county zoning commissioner. My wife's expression hardened instantly. "Of course," she muttered under her breath. "He's been trying to buy this land for months." Karen's voice cracked. "He said it was legal. He said you forged your ownership papers, that this whole property was government-claimed land." My wife's eyes snapped toward her. "And you believe that without checking a single record? You broke into private land with fake cops because some official told you to?" Karen tried to defend herself, but her words came out broken. "He said if I helped him clear you out, I'd get the house." "I didn't know it was you." That last line hit differently. I looked at my wife. "What does she mean, you?" My wife's silence was heavy. She finally sighed, then turned toward me. "Harold Dunn knows me," she said. "We worked on the same corruption task force 5 years ago. I exposed his land fraud case, but the charges were dropped because he had people protecting him." She took a step toward Karen, her tone turning ice cold. "And now he's trying again, using you as the cover." Before Karen could answer, the 2 trucks' headlights blinked twice, then cut off. The men who had come with her started backing up slowly, whispering to each other. The sound of gravel shifting under their boots echoed through the night. My wife spoke firmly. "Everyone stays right here. If you move, those cameras will flag you as active threats. And the sheriff will be here in minutes." Karen panicked. "You don't understand. Harold said he had connections in the sheriff's office. He'll make this disappear." My wife smiled faintly. "Then he doesn't know who's watching tonight." Just then her phone buzzed. A secure alert flashed across the screen. "Live uplink confirmed. Federal agents inbound, ETA 4 minutes." Karen froze. The fake officers turned pale. And from the corner of the woods, one of the hired men suddenly bolted toward his truck. "Stop!" my wife shouted. But before anyone could react, the man jumped in the driver's seat, slammed the door, and tried to reverse. He didn't notice the tire lock she had placed earlier, that Evening Standard Precaution from her field days. The tires shredded instantly, throwing sparks across the gravel. Everyone flinched. Karen screamed. My wife didn't even blink. I told you, she said quietly. Everything on this land is protected. Then, with a calm that chilled me to the bone, she pulled out her radio. Control, this is Agent Hale. Initiate lockdown on Grid 9B, suspects detained. Karen dropped to her knees. Please. I didn't know. But my wife just stared at her, voice low and final. You should have. The faint rumble of engines approached from the distance, real sirens this time. Blue and red lights flickered faintly through the trees. And Karen finally realized she hadn't been fighting a homeowner. She'd been fighting the law itself. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the cold night air like a final warning. Karen's mascara ran down her cheeks as she turned toward me, shaking. Please, tell her I didn't mean to. I didn't know who she was, she begged. But my wife didn't move. Her face stayed calm, unreadable, like she'd seen this kind of guilt too many times before. The federal SUVs rolled up the gravel path, lights flashing red and blue across the trees. 2 real agents stepped out, followed by the county sheriff himself. He stopped when he saw my wife, eyes widening slightly. Agent Hale? He said, startled. We weren't told you were back on field duty. She folded her arms. I wasn't, but I had no choice. Then she turned and pointed, straight at Karen and her fake crew. These people just attempted a coordinated trespass and impersonation under the direction of Harold Dunn. He paid them to stage an arrest, to force us off protected property. The sheriff looked at Karen, then at the trembling young man still holding his fake badge. You have any idea what kind of trouble you're in? He asked. Karen started sobbing. He said it was just a scare. He said no one would get hurt. My wife's tone softened for the first time. Someone always gets hurt when people think they can make their own law. The agents moved in quickly, reading rights, collecting fake IDs, bagging the props as evidence. Karen didn't resist. She just sat on the ground, staring at the dirt like she couldn't believe her world had collapsed so fast. Then the sheriff turned back to my wife. You've got him cornered now, he said quietly. Dunn won't walk away from this one. My wife nodded. He shouldn't have come after what's mine. The next morning, the story broke everywhere. Local news, online feeds, even national headlines. County official caught using fake. HOA to seize federal land. The footage from our cameras played on repeat. Karen shouting orders. The fake cops breaking character. And the exact moment my wife flashed her badge. But it wasn't just about revenge, it was exposure. The kind of justice that cut deep in public. Days later, I stood with her on the porch as the sun rose over the trees. The land was quiet. Again. Peaceful. She leaned against the railing and said softly, You know, I didn't fight to keep a cabin. I fought to remind people that law still means something. I smiled, and you did. She looked at me, a faint grin on her face. Karen thought she could write the rules. Turns out, I still hold the pen. Somewhere miles away, Harold Dunn was facing a courtroom. Karen was under investigation for impersonation and trespassing. And as for us, we finally had our peace. The cabin light flickered against the woods as the evening breeze returned. My wife took my hand and whispered the line that ended it all. I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't stand on my own land. And with that, the mountain was ours again.